You're listening to the RMPodcast, the official podcast of Red Moon Productions. Here are your hosts, Brandon Davidson, Keith Cheatham, and Sean Sebastian. Enjoy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Red Moon Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside, no, not our normal new host. It's red, not just because of Red Moon, but because of Valentine's Day.
Wow!
So Sean is spending some lovely time with his woman.
Woman!
So that's why me and Mr. Keith Cheatham, right over there, that beautiful hunk of love.
I'm a person.
You are. That's why we're spending the evening together. We're spending it all
On me,
right here,
on the cast,
tonight, alone.
the podcast,
You and I, we go way back.
the casting of pods,
We're here to talk about movies.
and love, because it's Valentine's Day.
That's right. And we have a lovely film.
Love.
But no, we're still single men, Keith. We haven't met the love of our lives yet. So we don't have anyone to spend it with but each other. I knew before the show started
I wanted it.
you were gonna use that one.
Oh,
Oh,
I ruined it. Did you know I was going to use that one?
Yes, because they
Exactly.
always often follow one another.
That one's just always in my heart.
Yep. Just like that hate.
It's not
the
a
hate in your
Valentine's Day
heart.
without it's working.
No, but Mr. Sean, he couldn't be here tonight.
Yeah, he's dead.
He's lovemaking with his wife.
Oh.
We can only hope he's sharing the load.
Well, I hope he's not dead then, because that's necrophilia.
You're supposed to hit the button for that one.
I lost it.
It's on the second.
All right, Dan.
It's on the second page.
It's that.
All
That's
right,
good.
Dan. Yeah, that's what Amelia's saying. She's like, all right, Dan, that's it. Get off. Kids are bed. All right, Dan, I'm going to bed.
You're just trying to offend everyone today, aren't you?
I am. I'm just trying to rib our good pal since he's not here. He'll be back. Well, actually, he won't be back.
He won't be back next week.
because
We'll all be
none
dead
of
next
us
week.
are going to be here next week. Yeah, duty calls.
Game over, man. Game over.
That was good. That was
Yeah,
perfect.
yeah.
Yeah. I'll be.
Sometimes they're appropriate.
Yeah. Sometimes you hit it right. You hit the correct one. I swear.
This is the most
thing
we've used
is,
this in
the problem
ever.
is once we get through the initial wave of like the newness has worn off of these,
No, there's a lot more though.
there
so-
are. And the thing is these
I
are
only ever
supposed to
use
be
like the same ones.
I know. You got to use. I put more on there for that purpose. It's like use them all.
Well, when it's appropriate, it's always appropriate to use. It's working.
That's true.
It's
And
just
even though
Jake
I
Lloyd
hate
just-
you,
There's nothing. I mean, that's everything Jake Lloyd has.
that's his whole career, his whole life.
Oh.
And sadly, it's not working anymore.
He has.
His life is gone. It's broken. It's sad.
Speaking of not having anything, we don't have.
We don't
women.
have a show next week.
Oh, we don't have a show next week.
No. We don't have
Oh.
a show next. Well, we have a show this week.
I was going the single thing. We don't have
Well,
loves,
we do- yeah,
loves, but
yeah. I mean, no,
the show's true too. We
we're
don't have
alone
either or.
together
We're gonna be showless and
and womanless.
next week.
I mean, I highly doubt I'm going to find the woman of my dreams
In a week?
by next week.
You don't know.
I did. It was funny because we've mentioned on the show. I'm on
You might
all the apps.
Hit it big on Tinder or Bumble, and
I'm not on Tinder.
just
I'm
3
not
days.
doing Tinder. I'm
know?
on like 4 different ones.
I'm just saying, you might hit it big, and then you have the love of your life next week.
But
No
here's the
show.
thing. I intentionally made sure,
Mm-hmm.
even though there's one particular one I actually pay for that I spend money on that I subscribe.
Oh, okay.
So I'm getting serious.
This is Valentine's talk, though.
Right,
Here we
right,
go, here we
yeah,
go.
a little
We're
icebreaker.
single. We got nothing else. We can't talk about our love life.
We could talk about movies.
Talk about the pursuit of love.
That's what we do with our time when we don't have women.
Through the web apps.
Yeah. So basically, I started swiping, and it was about a week or two ago that it kind of hit me. I was like, no, wait a sec. I was like,
Are you boredom swiping?
No. I'm not boredom swiping.
That's not good.
And I'm definitely not doing that. I'm being very intentional when I get on these apps, especially at this point.
Good word.
However,
Intentional.
that's right. However, I also was intentional about knowing what day was coming up for Valentine's Day.
Oh, so you stopped swiping.
Well, I did, because it's like, here's the thing. You never know. It's like, it's not that I have a problem with, I may meet the right one and then, we could spend Valentine's together or something. It's, what are the intentions of most of these women who would accept a message from me if they just wanted somebody to have as their own Valentine, just so that they didn't have to spend the holiday alone?
You don't want a one-night stand on Valentine's Day.
I wasn't even talking about a one-night stand. I'm looking for love, man. I'm in it for the right reason.
You don't want a one-night stand.
Well, and hopefully none of the women that I'm looking for. Yeah, that's true.
You don't want that.
Yeah,
exactly. Some
exactly.
people might be looking for that on a Valentine's Day.
And the girls that I'm looking for, a one-night stand to them is like they want some roses and a chocolate heart, and then they would just bounce like the next day. They'd be like, deuces, I'm out. I was in it for the candy.
That's
it.
No
love involved.
It is kind of awkward to have, like, I think a first date on Valentine's Day, because Valentine's Day tend to be like celebrating long term, like relationships you've been in for a while. It's kind of weird. It's like, it's Valentine's Day. Here's a plastic ring for the 2 days we've been together. You're not gonna go out and get her like really fancy jewelry. You haven't known them long, and it's. For you, it wouldn't have been a whole week.
No,
today's Valentine's Day, so
it would have been just
like less than
honestly,
an hour.
That would have been
right
the
now.
only cool. Like that would have been the only pickup line. Is like if I found somebody I was really interested in, I would have just been like, "Happy Valentine's Day." Like I think that would have actually been a good way to start.
And then
they would have totally
later,
rejected my
they might
ploy.
not.
They might not. It could have blossomed into something real. But the thing is I kind of look at it like it's on the up and up, because now that the holiday will be over tonight,
you have all year to find someone.
You have all year, and now there's no like, I've got to, because here's the thing, you kind of have this weird like, time period from literally I think like Thanksgiving to Valentine's Day.
When you're getting stuff for loved ones,
because you got the holidays coming, and you're like going to be with family. A lot of people are lonely; they want someone for the holidays. Then right after the holidays and New Year's is
everything
over,
from here on out is fair
exactly.
Game,
now it's fair game. Now it's open. You don't have to feel pressure. It's like, okay, I don't have to just be with this person for the holidays.
Yeah, there's no
or for Valentine's Day.
You got Easter's a major holiday, but that's okay. Other than that, it's like you're not really.
If we're celebrating Easter, I feel like we're getting off on the right foot. Yeah,
and it's like, and you don't have to worry about something like 4th of July. It's like, okay, you come hang with the family or do what, those are good holidays to want to have someone come around that you don't know yet.
A bad Easter pun.
Oh man, it's not Easter yet, but go ahead.
Well, no, I was gonna be like, well, the Lord's not the only thing rising. That's so wrong. I shouldn't have. Oh, he's got it one.
You serious, Clark?
Yeah, that was bad. I shouldn't have.
Yeah,
I'm not equating the death and resurrection of our Lord to that other nasty habit that we as humans have perverted for millennia. Not going there.
I think it's time for the review.
It is. We've
another Best Picture nominee.
We've far outweighed our time in this subject matter. Okay, we can move on to the show. As we said, no show next week. We will be back the week after. We're going to have 2 reviews though next week.
Yeah,
we've obviously got the big one on the block, Quantum Mania, coming up this Friday, releasing. Yeah. We're going to have our review of that. And then we're going to have a review of another Best Picture nom. And those are going to be live. We're going to show those.
We won't be here. You can watch the reviews.
We're going to do our deep dive discussion on Quantum Mania the week after when we come back. So we will have our reviews next week.
We're reviewing that week, Heath, too. We haven't looked that far ahead.
Yeah, I don't know.
There's major releases almost every week now. So
I thought we had one more dead week.
We
didn't?
This is it. Because then after Quantum Mania.
This kickstarts it. Quantum Mania kickstarts the juggernauts. We'll look that up during the review.
Yeah.
Alrighty, well, here is another one of our Best Picture noms from this year.
Yeah.
We only have 2 more left after this to review, so we do plan on reviewing all the Best Picture noms, but we'll see how this one fared. This is the movie Tar.
Zan.
The following is a review by Keith Cheatham. Much like the meme of the dog sitting calmly at the kitchen table proclaiming everything is fine as the house burns down around him, Hollywood saunters on. desperate to make audiences conform to their way of thinking. This has become more and more blatant the last few years, but it is always extra blatant during Oscar season, which has certainly held true for many of this year's nominees. While audiences grow sick of the obvious attempt at virtue signaling and outright propaganda, what I find worse is when Hollywood tries to be crafty and subtle. Which brings me to Best Picture nominee Tar. The film critics declared almost borders on conservative values, making it clear that leftist Hollywood truly has no understanding of those values, or are intentionally deceptive to hide their own agenda. They are, of course, both. Starring Cate Blanchett as the fictional Lydia Tarr, a modern-day composer, EGOT winner, and head conductor of the Berlin Philharmonic Orchestra, Lydia is blunt, intelligent, and opposes the ideas of cancel culture and identity politics. She is also a married lesbian, which is supposed to lend some kind of authority to her views as someone who cannot be challenged, as they are a part of the woke community. What starts off as a smart and well-made film soon becomes a thinly veiled backhanded commentary on cancel culture, as despite her incredible work and extraordinary talent, Lydia Tarr is a terrible person. Where many give the film credit is in an early scene where Lydia berates a Juilliard school student for his refusal to play music from classical composers such as Bach. This being due to such composers being cis white men who directly contributed to the patriarchy and other wokeness nonsense. And while Lydia's rebuttal is in essence true, which many conservatives have praised, the film proceeds to focus on the evils of Lydia's character, while half-heartedly asking the question, but should she still be praised for her genius? It's hard to even call this subtle, though, seeing how on the nose it is in comparison to the current controversy surrounding J.K. Rowling, whose views have likewise gotten her labeled with such terms as bigot, sexist, and TERF. The film purports to raise the question, should artists' personal lives and views be separated from their works? But doesn't feel like an honest exploration of that question. Instead, the film, which at times drags, feels more like a ready-made example Hollywood can throw at people to say, see, we don't agree with cancel culture either, a stance they will reserve for the likes of people like Roman Polanski, while they continue their attempts at burning J.K. Rowling at the stake. All because despite what they say, cancel culture is only wrong if it's people who think like them being canceled. Directed by Todd Field, the movie is technically well made, and even outside of its subject matter, I can see why it was nominated. Blanchett gives a stellar performance, with writing and dialogue expertly crafted. Some may even find the film too highbrow, but despite the scholarly dialogue and musical jargon, the film never talks down to its audience and trusts that they are smart enough to absorb the material. Much like the Banshees of Inisherin, while in some ways more pretentious than Banshees, it's not so pretentious to be utter nonsense that the filmmakers will blame audiences for being too stupid to understand. Outside of how well made it is, however, nothing within the film resonated with me. It does nothing for lovers of music the way Chazelle's Whiplash and La La Land did, and its themes and morals are too spotty and poorly crafted to make it a film I feel stand the test of time. Sure, there are times Lydia makes statements I feel many would agree with, but we are constantly reminded that she's a bad person, and perhaps her views shouldn't be taken seriously after all. What I walked away with was a movie that bored me, not because it was too intelligent, but because it was another Oscar nominee that once again lacked any real substance. It doesn't outright shove an agenda down your throat, as many other films this year have, but it's not the bastion of common sense and even-handedness others make it out to be. I appreciate Blanchett's performance, but very few I think will revisit or remember Tar. I give Tar 2.5 out of 4 stars. 2.5 out of 4 stars for Tar.
It's one of those things where
Black Tar.
And
Texas tea.
Yeah, Texas tea. Actually, you know what? Hold on real quick, because I have a list here. We got distracted. So we have Ant-Man Quantumania, obviously, this weekend. But then we have Cocaine Bear, Creed 3, Scream 6, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, John Wick Chapter 4. This week's not so great, Dungeons and Dragons, but we'll see. Then let's see, Super Mario Brothers movie. Renfield, Beau is Afraid, we were interested in, and Evil Dead Rise.
Who's in Beau is Afraid again?
That's the Joaquin Phoenix, the one from the guy that did Midsommar. And
that's right, yep. Oh, gosh, Ari Aster, isn't it?
Yes.
Oh, man.
I can't wait. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Fast 10,
The end begins.
Hey, the trailer. I was like,
I haven't seen it. Was that a Super Bowl trailer?
Yeah, it was.
I missed every damn Super Bowl trailer.
It was one where I'm like, it needed to end a long time ago, but at least it's like it is ending finally, and I was like, okay, well, we'll see. One final part 2 go.
It's ending is beginning.
Well, because it's split into 2 films. Right. Like they keep saying, this is it. This is the finale, but it's like, but you have one more movie, so this technically isn't the finale.
Right.
But yeah, the Boogeyman and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, Transformers.
But still,
Pixar's Elemental, yeah, that's a lot, and that's just halfway through July. I mean, I could keep going, but
we're stacked. We're stacked.
Well, because
bringing it all here in 2023 on the Red Moon Podcast.
The pandemic's finally going to be over in a few months.
What?
Yeah, it's finally.
As Spielberg told Tom Cruise, you saved Hollywood's ass.
I think it was supposed to be March, but then there's some. Now I'm hearing April. I don't know, but the pandemic didn't end a year and a half ago with the rest of us.
Of course not.
We're finally wrapping it up.
Not till everybody got their 8th booster. And the fact is that it was only then that the pandemic was over.
But now even then, maybe tons of movie releases.
Not really till May. That's when that's when all the guidelines.
Well,
the
movies are coming now, so
they've been coming for a long time. Well, and the thing is it's just maybe a lot of them have been.
Most of them have been garbage, and nobody cares.
Crappy movies.
I mean, if we look at the 2 that were the highest gross, Top Gun and Avatar, they were both just stuck to being entertaining films telling their story. There wasn't a lot of
heaven forbid
agenda.
Heaven forbid we
there.
actually go to the theater and just enjoy going.
It's amazing.
Well, that brings us nicely to Tar.
To agendas and politics.
Pretentiousness.
Yeah, pretentiousness too. I do appreciate that Tar wasn't. I found it was kind of a middle ground of being like, of not treating audiences stupid, like, because Banshee's a very smart film, I feel like, but I never felt like it was so pretentious that it was just like, well, people just don't understand. We're bad, like Cronenberg. I don't think Tar was that bad either, where it was just like, well, if you don't like it, it's because you didn't understand it. But there was still that air of, well, what we have to say is important, and
part of that it does rest on the subject matter itself.
Yeah.
I mean, about when you're talking about classical music, when you're talking about, I mean, I'll be honest.
She's the lead composer, Lydia Tarr, fictional lead composer of the Berlin Philharmonic.
But no, here's the thing. I actually ended up giving it 3 out of 4.
You did. You did a little bit higher than me.
I gave it just a little bit higher, and while I do agree with your summation in the review, the only thing. I completely agree with where you're coming from, and ultimately it's overarching, not only its pretentiousness with certain, to me, what the film was pointing out was the elites trying to say, yeah, we're coming down off of our pedestal to show you how down to earth we can be, by pointing at the criticism or having criticism for those who are in our upper echelon who kind of have this so-called air about themselves that they are the upper crust. Yeah. When in reality, what we're going to do is showcase this teardown of this character and show you her roots and how this was all an act and how it was all BS. And I'm like, but again, I think that underhandedly plays the kind of ambition that one can have to turn their circumstances around, regardless of what hand they're dealt, to reach that upper echelon. Yeah. Now, granted, you can always criticize someone's character, but to me, it was a non sequitur in the film. The themes that they were trying to tie and weave together of her pretentious, elitist behavior along, that I would ultimately just summarize in terms of being a bad character, or having bad character. Yeah. And then ultimately, there's certain scenes like you mentioned in the review, and of course the one that was highly trafficked online and social media, the scene where she pretty much talks directly down to a student saying, how ridiculous of you to downplay someone that, again, we stand on the shoulders of giants. How in the world can you criticize and spit on those beneath you when you wouldn't even be where you are?
The music he wants to play wouldn't exist without.
Absolutely.
And I agreed with the scene.
To just have that kind of temerity to sit here and act as if you somehow usurp those who came before you to such a heightened degree that you won't even give them a chance or a listen.
And I agree completely with her sentiment in that scene. It was just, to me, kind of the hypocrisy from Hollywood, this idea that, should we judge, greats by, their deeds or their works? It's like, okay, maybe Bach wasn't, the idea is the kid was like, well, they contribute to the cis white patriarchy and the systemic racism that's existed,
which is totally garbage. We would hear these days.
It is
so stupid.
And the idea is okay, but despite that, like should we appreciate their work for being the greatness as it is, and separate that from the artist, which I would agree with in a general sense. Not that I think Bach was an evil person like that kid tried to make out to be, but that, sometimes you do have to separate. I mean, I can't stand Alec Baldwin, but Beetlejuice is a terrific movie. So,
right.
And that's the idea that I would agree with on that, but then the parallels they try to convey with her by trying to make her appear like, see, she's this, even though she is a lesbian, which sides with Hollywood's views, she's still this terrible person, but she was great. So they try to make these parallels with her life to that scene as well.
And I ultimately even think that they kind of slightly... They played the angle in that regard almost as if to make you think she's such a bad person that she was willing to do anything and everything to get on top.
Yes.
Even in so much as being and pretending to be somebody she's not.
Yeah.
And I think that's where they were playing somewhat the lesbian angle.
Of like,
maybe she's not.
Even though she kind of pursues the Russian player.
True. Oh, yeah. She definitely has, I think, an affinity, but I think it's more an affinity for like strong women and women who have this tenacity the same as she does. She almost kind of likens it to they're hungry. They want, and it's funny because you see that juxtaposition between her and the young celloist, who's just kind of this natural talent, who's having fun with it, who doesn't see it as some kind of, striving that she has to just reach this upper echelon. She just kind of enjoys it.
Yeah.
And I think she kind of yearns to have.
I think that is the parallel that they wanted to make there. But to me, like I was saying, it just kind of annoys me that that Hollywood's going to praise this movie as, see, look, we understand how cancel culture is bad, and that's not what we're doing. And it's like, but you're praising this movie for something I feel like isn't what it's trying to accomplish either.
Right.
And if it is, it's done so poorly.
Well, and I thought it was also kind of a slap in the face, especially how the movie ends.
Yeah.
That's where the pretentious nature kicked in for me, and that's where I was kind of pissed. And I only noticed where the music derived from, simply not because of the cosplaying that was going on in the audience, but mainly because it was mentioned in the credits in the opening scene, and I just happened to see Monster Hunter listed as a copyright. And so I'm sitting here, and like when I saw the ending of the movie, I was like, how freaking pretentious of you to have had this whole movie outlined about how
like now she's at the bottom of her career playing.
Right, and the bottom of her career happens to be this huge beloved probably newfound way orchestra and classical music is beloved at all today. Same as movie and theatrical filmmaking. The reason you even have modern day composers in the same vein as someone.
She was a film composer, so why is that any better than a game?
Well, but that's my point.
Yeah.
They're making fun of the fact that she ends up at the bottom of the barrel, and the bottom of the barrel to them is by composing in like Vietnam or whatever a country you assume it's a Middle East or an Asian country somewhere, that she's ending up there.
Yeah,
and she was in Berlin. There's something different about being there where all of the great composers came from, and now I'm just she has to settle for this. And I thought, wow, this is how the movie's going to end. You just kind of upended your whole point of making her the bad guy. I'm like, no, now you are the bad guy because you're the one who's sitting here trying to kind of say to the audience, well, she just look at what happened to her when she followed down this path of just constantly trying to climb the ladder. No matter who she stepped on to get there, she ended up at the bottom of the barrel, and that's what she gets coming to her. And I'm like, wow. I was like, it's sad that you would take some art that actually has reinvigorated the very thing she claims to preserve, and she's now there doing it, and you see that as a downfall. It just speaks to me as the filmmaker and a missed message.
What is true art and what isn't.
Yeah.
And ultimately, though, outside of some of those, because I don't think it was a badly made film. It wasn't a badly written. Like, I enjoyed the dialogue and the writing. And Cate Blanchett was phenomenal. I mentioned in the review, she definitely deserves her nomination. If not the win, I'd have to see, I guess, the other nominees. But it's one of those things where that's why I gave it the 2.5.
Her performance was the only thing that captivated me from start to finish.
I felt there were parts of the film that did drag a little bit, being just a little bit over 2.5 hours long. And it also wasn't like you said in a text to me that it was kind of this typical fall from grace story, which I agree with. There wasn't really anything in there that I felt was that new or revolutionary or would last. People 10, 20 years from now, I don't feel like are going to look back at Tar and be like, oh yeah, this was the pinnacle of filmmaking of that time, because it's not.
And that was ultimately why I did settle on 3 out of 4. It's not that I think it's a timeless classic that will be remembered or even will harken back to, but it was one of those where if you can remove, and it's hard to do, the subtext of some of the political angles that they're playing for modern day.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I didn't mind the overarching theme of just, okay, like you said, that I brought up this fall from grace. It's like, to me, that's kind of what is illustrated, if anything, throughout her character arc. It's she's willing to go to, the highest extent of her extremes just to get up on top. And there is a scene beautifully played out at the end that I thought was kind of, it was a little bit of a subtle twist I wasn't expecting. When it all comes crashing down, she heads back to her home and she's watching these old VHSs of performances from conductors that she's watched, and she's pretty much mimicked in terms of who she represents. And she's kind of crying almost as if like this was the magic I was always chasing. And it was a little bit of a redeeming quality of like, no, she's not just a terrible person. She did these horrible things, because that was the disconnect with the movie for me, is I'm like, okay, you're right about, morally what you're trying to say theme-wise, in terms of saying, yes, your character can ultimately be your demise when it comes to when it really counts and when it matters in moving forward with your life and moving forward with, high esteem and praise. And it's like, no, your bad character will do that in a heartbeat. And it kind of, and I like that. That's why I'm fine with that theme. It's just like you said, when they throw in the little political subtext to try to fit it into modern day, as if, oh, no, she's just this terrible, hard-hearted person who only cares about herself, and the only type of people that are like that happen to align with this political ideology. Yeah. And I'm like, that's BS. I was like, that's bullshit, and that's where I'm just like, I had to knock off a whole star for that. But I could still get behind the general theme of, no, what happens when you let anything consume you to the extent that you let it take over your entire life, and you will, at any expense possible, be willing to throw anyone under the bus to get your way and to move forward. And I think, I think this movie does do a decent job of showing that, fall from grace.
Yeah, and I think for me, just we've talked about in the past, I know Synchronic was one that I was a really big example for me. Is just anytime there's something that I feel like I'm not going to revisit, because I don't really think I would revisit this film again.
Same.
And on top of some of the other issues, I was just like, I don't think 3 is unfair. I just myself was just like, I didn't enjoy it enough on top of everything else.
It was very long-winded.
Yeah.
There were a lot of times where I was watching this and just some of the pregnant pauses and the moments they were wanting to settle in, or even some of the conversations that, like you said, kind of had this air of.
Those were some of that.
It definitely was a way into that world, and I didn't mind it. And again, the writing was well done enough that I could follow along, and it did seem natural. But then there were just parts where I'm like, I don't know why this part of the narrative is being told, or it's being drug out in such a way that I'm just like, I don't know. I kept finding myself kind of getting bored a little bit throughout.
There were a few, and that's kind of why I was just like, I've stuck with the 2.5, because I was just like, it's not going to hold, like, it didn't hold my interest throughout the whole first viewing. I don't really want to go back. And though there are things I do, like you said, there are things I did really appreciate about it. Otherwise it would be much lower, like some of the other Oscar nominees.
You mentioned it in your review, but I'm like, a far better film that I think plays with some of the similar themes, and ultimately I think does a better job conveying two sides of the same coin in terms of, what are you willing to sacrifice, and ultimately what is too far, even in terms of pressure, and that's Whiplash. I mean, and Chazelle's Whiplash I would watch tenfold, and it's a movie that I consider to be not only great, but way more entertaining in terms of its pacing, in terms of its characters, and just, again, just like J.K. Simmons' performance in that, Cate Blanchett has just as much a mesmerizing performance in this.
No, she's phenomenal.
But it's not her performance that drags the movie down as much as it is just everything that kind of revolves around her performance. It's a little too bloated.
Yeah, I agree.
I
agree.
That was fantastic. We only have 2 more.
Wow.
Oh, wow. What are they? Women Talking. What's the
Triangles
other one?
of Sadness.
Triangles of Sadness.
Triangles of Sadness should be the one we have next week with Ant-Man. Women Talking, we've still not...
Well, I guess that'll have to be with
chance,
Cocaine Bear.
We will. Well, no. Well, here's the thing. We'll have to see because I don't know like when or if we'll be able to get a chance to see it. So that might be the only one, depending on.
Well, it's not till March 12th.
Yeah, there might be. I'm just saying that we'll keep our eye out if it's available in a theater or available to see.
Here's the
anyway,
thing. If we don't end up reviewing it outright on the show, it will be available online.
Yeah, it will.
We'll have it on our website.
And it's one of those things where I honestly don't. It's that one really is the bottom barrel.
We're cis white males on this podcast.
Oh, it's not even that I don't care to see it.
And we don't care to talk about women talking.
It's just one of those things that it's not really gotten any buzz or nominations or awards for anything else. I feel like it's just a bottom barrel pick that isn't really going to matter if we see it or not.
No, it's no doubt the diversity pick.
So it's just one of those things where I'm like, I don't.
Just like, Wakanda Forever didn't.
It's not going to win anything.
Wakanda Forever didn't get a Best Picture nom.
No,
but it did get a best actress.
Angela Bassett got best supporting actress.
Come on,
everyone, everywhere has been praising her performance, and she's got nominations at all the big awards. Brandon,
diversity nom. I don't care.
No, that would have been Viola Davis. She didn't get it.
Look, we're gonna review Grumpy Old Men instead of Women Talking.
I like Grumpy Old Men.
We'll do that one instead.
I like it.
All right, let's move on to our headlines for this week.
Let's do it. Pow, 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 pow.
Beautiful.
Pow, 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 pow.
Oh, man, he's got it. He's in it tonight. Go. Keep going.
What'd you do?
All right, let's talk about
some stuff.
The headline is great.
Is it?
The details.
The deets.
Not quite what I was expecting.
Oh.
Disney Plus lost tons of subscribers. This news, of course, happened to drop last Wednesday after our show last week.
Right after the show.
As all the best news does.
on it.
I want to bring up this TechCrunch article that I have.
Do it.
And I'm going to read a little bit of it because I think there are some revealing details. They lost 2.4 million subscribers, which at first is like, it's the wokeness, it's the ideology they've been pushing. There is a little bit of that, I think, in some of this.
Yeah.
However,
no, there's just keeping on.
Yeah, not what I was expecting when I read the headline. Disney's first quarter with CEO Bob Iger back in command isn't looking so good. Disney announced in its Q1 2023 earnings today, reported a total of $161.8 million. 161.8 million Disney Plus global subscribers, a decrease of 2.4 million subs from 164.2 million in the previous quarter. This is the streamer's first subscriber loss since launching in 2019. First thought is, boom, holy crap, we've been talking about this. We told you this wave was coming, that people were going to unsubscribe. The only reason people were sticking around anyway was for the classic content in general, and that may still be the case. But then there was a little bit more news to add to this. On the semi-positive side, Disney Plus gained 200,000 domestic subscribers here in the U.S. and Canada.
Most of the ones lost, it said, were in India.
The result put Disney Plus's 2024 target into question because they were hoping to reach 215 to 245 million subs by 2024 to overtake Netflix. But notably, Iger announced during today's earnings call that Disney will no longer provide subscriber addition guidance, the same move that Netflix recently made, which I thought was kind of funny because I just think it's hilarious that they're kind of taking a page from Netflix's book, and it's like the moment the subscribers drop even a little in one quarter loss, they're like, oh, yeah, by the way, we're no longer going to report these in the future.
Yeah.
Because, of course, stock prices just plummet. But like you were just bringing up, Disney's other streaming services, Hulu and ESPN Plus, had a decent quarter, gaining 800,000 subscribers and 600,000 subscribers respectively. Hulu now has 48 million, and ESPN Plus has 24.9. The let's talk about the decrease, though. I'm trying to find that specific.
You skipped that right before the one. Like I said, you skipped that paragraph. That's why.
The subscriber loss comes on the heels of the company increasing the subscription price of its Disney Plus ad-free plan to $11 per month in tandem with its new $7.99 ad-supported tier. For that reason, analysts were actually expecting a larger loss of 3 million subs. So today's news is not entirely bad from that perspective. Also, based on where the subscriptions were lost from, which were mostly in the Indian market overseas. So they weren't necessarily in what you would consider, what we've been talking about in terms of, here in America. Again, they gained 200,000 subscribers, whereas we were hoping the woke agenda would hurt them here more than anything. So it actually seems that that may be hurting overseas.
Yeah,
and it also may be due to the fact
could be hurting overseas because a country like India is not a wealthy country that's going to be like, let's keep paying for the subscriptions as they increase in prices.
Well, and we've always found that in certain countries overseas, just like with music torrenting, the moment that you jack up prices on something, people start getting a little bit more creative about how they acquire certain digital
India is
content.
The top most pirating. I mean, they have Tamil Rockers, which is a torrent. I mean, torrenting is huge in India. So if you're going to charge more money, then the country that torrents the most outside of America is going to just torrent the movies.
So what do we take from this then? Because here's the thing.
Okay, what I'm taking from it, I was going to say, is that when it comes to certain, because we have seen in certain projects and titles suffer. So when it comes to Strange Worlds, Lightyear, I do think
even Turning Red,
when
all bombs,
there's content that people don't agree with and don't like, they're not going to go. But I do think the Disney brand is still so strong, and the nostalgia for Disney is still so strong that Americans aren't easily ready to give it up, because there is something. I mean, first Disney Plus, it's like if you want to make Disney stop, the best way to is lose money. But of course, then you lose access to also back catalogs of things that people do want to show their children.
Right.
If you get rid of Disney Plus, you can't show them classics from Snow White all the way up through the Disney's Renaissance and Aladdin and The Little Mermaid. So those are movies that do have great messages that people still want to share with their kids. So I do think there's a lot of that where people are just like, well, we're not going to support any of the woke stuff, but we're still going to share this stuff with our kids.
And I think it's telling too, because right after the ad played on Sunday during the Super Bowl,
which was a wonderful ad,
it was fantastic. And it's funny because I'm like, 5-6 years ago that ad run, if it had run then, I would have been like, this is why Disney's on top.
Yeah,
this is why they're king. They know how to hit the feels. They know how to speak to the audience. They know how to touch on that nostalgia to not only touch younger generations, but the of past generations, and that hit that nail on the head of just like, wow, it strikes you as the behemoth that Disney's been.
Yeah.
And of course they know how to pull in pulling in Walt Disney's voice and him sitting there drawing Mickey.
Perfect. They know that emotional moment. Yeah,
they know exactly what they're doing.
I wish their movies were as good as they made that ad like these last few years. Because
and that's why it was funny, because I immediately texted right after the ad aired. We were all kind of watching the Super Bowl, and I said, too bad the magic's gone.
Yeah.
And I'm like, so you're celebrating 100 years of existing, but we know what you've been peddling over the last couple. And the funny thing is none. Even the scenes they chose from some of their woke material of recent years, none of it was the woke material that they were amplifying like they have been over the last two years specifically.
Put half as much effort into making their current films as magical as that ad, and without the woke stuff, they would people wouldn't be worried about going to see a Marvel movie or a Star Wars movie or the latest Disney animated movie, because we would just know, okay, Disney's focused on doing what they do best, and that's making the best out of their brand and entertaining people. But it's just not been the case recently. In fact, I honestly believe that's why they just announced the string of all these sequels: Toy Story,
I was gonna
Frozen,
bring that up. Yep.
Zootopia. It's like, oh, people are getting annoyed with all the crap that we've been shoveling. Let's try to bring them back in by announcing sequels. And it's like, that's fine, but Toy Story should have already ended. And if you're going to shove woke stuff into those franchises,
what bigger way to prove the magic's dead by revisiting old IP?
Yeah.
I mean, come on, we've been down those roads. I mean, Toy Story, we railed against 4.
It should have ended at 3.
It should have ended at 3. There was no reason to bring on a 4th one. Now to bring on a 5th?
Yeah.
And I know that it was like obviously duh. But I remember texting you all when they announced that, Tim Allen had retweeted that he was joining.
They could say, see, we never replaced him. It was just for that. And I'm like, whatever.
Which I think, actually kind of funny because now it shows not only are you revisiting this property that has been a cash cow for you in the past, proving you don't have any originality, but you're also revisiting the IP that you know brings in money versus the one that just released last year and was a flop.
Yep. With
Chris Evans playing Lightyear.
Well, and then, to do a third Frozen after the second one, which, the second one was financially successful in most, but, it just didn't stack up. And then a sequel to Zootopia as well. And I'm just, my thought is, it's like, one, there's no originality left. Two, it just feels like a desperate plea. And three, unless you actually put in effort to make these movies great because nobody wants them, like it's just going to backfire humongously, especially if you start shoveling in the same woke stuff that's been in the movies that have failed, like Lightyear. Because nobody, like at this point, Toy Story is a franchise that should have ended at 3, and if you start going down that rabbit hole, then people are going to be completely fed up.
Oh, of course, and that's honestly the only. We only have the evidence of the last couple years. And I don't blame Chapek. Chapek was not the sole problem. Again, even if Iger was against Chapek coming in, who is now gone and Iger's back, it's still the fact that Iger was the one who brought in these employees, or at least they were hired in on his watch.
Well, the people in charge are the ones he put in charge.
Right.
After the ousting of Lasseter, and granted, Pete Docter was the logical choice, but obviously it's like he's apparently not...
He doesn't have the same direction or the same leadership that Lasseter had.
And then Jennifer Lee for Disney Animation was placed there by, again, Bob Iger. So it's like the people who are in charge, Feige with Marvel.
Again, it goes to show you what happens when you cater to the mob. And the woke mob has proved nothing but how resilient they are to get into the crevices and manipulate these corporations into doing their bidding. And being as loud, this loud minority that changes the conversation and makes a huge wave into changing content, and it has seeped into almost everything that Disney has promoted over the last couple years. And not only is it the withdrawing of fans and losing subscription services, and you may sit here and say, well, just like we brought up, we were very honest on the show about how it's like, okay, they gained 200,000 in the U.S. and Canada. However, 200,000 is not a huge leap. Majority of people who want Disney Plus already have it, and you still the numbers they're not going to give us, which I'd be more interested in seeing, is what is being streamed.
Yeah.
What are the hours? Just like people have complained with Netflix. Okay, you've got this massive array of content. You've got these subscriber numbers now that they've stopped reporting. We know Disney now is going to stop reporting the numbers of pluses and minuses in terms of subscribers. So now it's a question of, well, who's consuming what content? And if we can look at the content that's being consumed, trust me, you don't think Disney has that internal data? Of course they do. And if they continue to release this garbage, but again, they try to tell you, no, don't pay any attention don't pay any attention to the man behind the curtain. It's like, oh, okay, so we're not going to pay attention to the numbers. We're just going to accept that you put this out and said, oh, this is good. This is good content. And you have to like it because, well, that's just what we're putting out nowadays. And I think you have that revolt within, blatantly when it comes to the movies that are released in theaters. Because there, the ticket sales don't lie. And the fact that they had 3 major motion picture animated films released last year, and all of them were flops. All of them were bad. None of them garnered any kind of surplus for Disney or revenue bump. Yep. The only movies that came out last year were Marvel movies that gave Disney a bump. And even those underperformed based on previous Marvel movies. So even seeing that train slow and that steam die down, it's like, okay, where are we at with Disney? And you're wanting to return to old IP? That's your solution?
Well, they have IP now that's dying in the water. I mean, when was the last Star Wars movie that came out? Think about that. They spent billions of dollars on the Star Wars franchise. You can't tell me that their idea was we'll make 3 movies and then just a bunch of series on Disney+.
Well, that was another rumor. Another rumor was they were going to be in such hot water that they were going to start selling off IP.
Yeah, that there was idea that they might end up selling Star Wars because they don't know what
Marvel.
to do. They don't know what to do with it anymore.
They would never sell Marvel.
I don't think the Marvel, because at least that one is still bringing in money in movies.
It's cash cow.
With Star Wars, it's
their
like
only cash cow now right now.
Yes, Star Wars may help people subscribe to Disney Plus. I mean, we got 200,000 extra subscribers. Good job. Is that really what you spent $4 billion for? Was to get 200,000 extra subscribers on your streaming service? No. The fact that they've not pushed out another Star Wars theatrical film in this many years shows you that, yeah, Disney doesn't know what to do with these properties anymore. I mean, Muppets is one that has been dead for ages as well. I'm trying to think of some other dead properties Disney owns, because they just they stick to the IPs they know make money, like Marvel. They'll go back to Toy Story. They'll go back to Frozen.
But that's only relatively new.
Yeah.
The thing was about the Pixar brand is that you knew that no matter what,
it was
you had misses here and there.
Yeah.
But over the span of 20 years, there were maybe 2 or 3 that were misses.
All of it's relatively new. I mean, like I said, they wouldn't have spent $4 billion on a property if they thought. But the fact that they have ran all of these properties into the ground, and again, like you said, within just a few years, because it's not like it's been over a decade, but at the same time, now they're sitting around thinking, oh, we're releasing 3 or 4 Marvel movies at this point a year, and that's another thing. Maybe you shouldn't,
right?
Because Star Wars doesn't need to have that many movies.
Well, and I think you easily saw the Star Wars burnout. It's funny that you're talking about how they haven't, even they bought that, they kind of ran it into the ground, and they haven't revisited it. And I think it's because they're letting it cool.
Yeah, they need
because
to.
they saw
know they need to.
How much of a debacle the trilogy,
they're gonna try
the 3
Indiana
trilogy
Jones
was
right now.
The what?
They're going to try Indiana Jones.
I know.
Right now.
Yep. I mean, and I saw that trailer during the Super Bowl, and
yeah,
there's a lot of cutaways as soon as Harrison starts swinging that whip, and it's like the dude is freaking old. Like, hang it up.
Hey, he jumped out of a plane.
Well, he's crashed planes too. It's like
I'm talking about in the movie, but
look,
yeah, he has crashed planes.
He's a great actor. The dude is not Indiana Jones anymore.
No,
he's done.
He's old. There's a certain point in time when you can't realistically believe, no matter who it is, that at 80 years old they're running around cracking whips and dodging bullets. I'm like, I'm sorry.
Like, yeah, no. I don't know. I'm yawning because it's Disney, and I'm bored of what they've done. I don't see anything on their. I mean, well, and we've got also the news from them that they're cutting 7,000 jobs.
Yeah,
as opposed to the tumultuous times that we're facing. And granted, look, it is. I'm not going to say that that's just part of the market right now in general. You see a lot of big tech in the same results. Having to cut a crap ton of jobs, but you also have to wonder too how many of those were. Kind of puffed up positions that were only there because they catered to some kind of diversity hire, or they catered to some kind of ideological bent as to why they were, hired in the first place. It's like, where are these majority of these cuts coming from? Are they coming from the Disney parks that aren't getting a lot of visitors because, attendance is down for whatever reason? I mean, there's just so many different ways in which you can take this and say, look, they brought Bob Iger back in for a reason. He's only been in there since the fall when they ousted Chapek on a Sunday night in the middle of the night. Mm-hmm. It's like, that doesn't happen if you think you're in, you're on a good pathway to success. And so I'm eager to see if Disney can write the course. I have a feeling that yes, the legacy is stronger than just the current bad years.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's not something that happens overnight. This is going to take, I think, a full decade.
Well, and
the reason I say that is because you have to have a change of heart. And I don't think that change of heart comes very easily. It's not just a change of leadership, but it is truly a change of the fundamentals of which you've been practicing by. And as quick as the wokeness came in and took over and started poisoning the water hole, it's like you got to get all that badness out, and you got to get rid of the chaff and separate the wheat from the chaff. And it's like right now Disney's in a precarious position of what are you going to do in the next few years to come to really write this course. And I think they have their work cut out for them. So that even though they gained 200,000, it wouldn't surprise me if in the coming quarters we may see a subscriber loss in the U.S. or very slow gains that are dropping steadily in terms of not very many more gains, and that still isn't good for them.
Well, and again, any course correction they take, I mean, especially within the films. I mean, look at DC. I mean, we still have a full year of movies coming out. It's not until 2024 that we even begin to see, their course correction. So even bringing Iger back now, and anything they go to do. I mean, there's movies slated to come out this year, next year, most of them in post-production. The ones coming out this year ready to go. I mean, Ant-Man's this weekend. So at this point, it's like, okay, if we go see Ant-Man and it's the same garbage that we've been getting, and we have that for the rest of the year of whatever's coming from Marvel and Disney, by the time they do begin course correction, they're already going to have lost people who have gotten sick in the last year and a half to throughout this year. So yeah, it's going to be hard. And if that change of heart hasn't even taken place, then it's going to be even longer than just this year or next year before you see any changes.
100%.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to our next headline.
Share the load.
That's right.
Feel better now.
I do. I'm glad you played it. Our next headline is the Academy president. Yeah. She admits, the new Academy president says the slap response wasn't good enough. Okay. We've got to do better.
Wow.
Bravo.
And I don't...
Wow.
I just don't. I don't like. I do know what to say, but I'm just like, okay. But you all were the ones who came up with the pun. Like they always do this. They all.
I know.
Every time something happens,
it's showboating.
Yes, that's controversial. Yeah, we could have done better, and we will do better. That's what we're here for. Like we have to do like the diversity. We have to do better. Women getting nominations. We have to do better, and then they'll have a year of huge changes where they make diversity hires or where they nominate stuff, and then they'll have a year like this year where there's people who aren't nominated, like Viola Davis, where they'll be like, well, what's wrong? I thought you were fixing the diversity, because it's unfeasible.
Of course, exactly.
Have one of every category.
Again, they don't want steady change. They want change swiftly and unimaginably, because they don't want real change. They want to demagogue it. And the problem is when you demagogue it, it's very easily shown what your aim is.
Yeah.
And the fact is, it's like, okay, so really you only want to be praised for this type of performance or this type of achievement simply by these, again, virtue signaling, by saying this criteria automatically defines that I'm worthy.
Well, yeah, the people who went
Never mind, it used to be about actual, meritocracy and performance. Heaven forbid.
Because they just want brownie points for doing something, but they don't actually want to do anything because they are the elite. It's the same thing with Harvey Weinstein. We'll praise him for years until we get
Heart
caught.
of gold.
Yeah, and then we'll say, oh, no, we didn't know, or they'll continue to praise Roman Polanski.
Well, and that's kind of what I wanted to read from the article we linked down. She specifically said, as I am sure you all remember, we experienced an unprecedented event at the Oscars. What happened on stage was wholly unacceptable, and the response from the organization was inadequate. We learned from this that the Academy must be fully transparent and accountable in our actions, and particularly in times of crisis. We must act swiftly, compassionately, and decisively for ourselves and for our industry. You should and can expect no less from us going forward. We are committed to maintaining the highest of standards while creating the changes we wish to see in our industry. And I just think that's, again...
BS?
Yeah, BS, PR, whatever you want to call it. It's your typical mumbo jumbo that you're going to get from anybody who's heading up an industry that's trying to say, we're trying to cultivate this industry of compassion and change based on what we saw. And it's like, no, look no further than what that represents for the Academy as a whole, what happened last year.
Yeah.
We're coming up on a year later from the slap. And the fact of the matter is you had people who were ultimately shocked and dismayed because they didn't know what was happening. You could see it on everybody's face. But the fact is that no, you can't right the ship in so much as it was proven how bad your character was and your response leading up to that. He not only went on to be part of the audience continuing out the rest of the night, he won an award and came up to accept the award right after.
Yeah.
Don't sit here and tell me
the
fact that it's much worse than you were just ill-equipped to act in the right manner. Mm-hmm. No, anybody in their right mind would have pulled him aside and said, you got to go.
Yeah.
What you just did was out of line. It is not part of anything we do here. This is a ceremony that is nationally televised. You not only look like a jackass, we're not going to take a chance on you doing something else half-cocked. Mm-hmm. Get out. Leave. And it just pisses me off because it's like, because he's, again, nothing screams privilege more than the fact that you could sit in an audience of that caliber, do what he did, and then remain seated there for the rest of the night. But I guarantee you, if some homeless dude came in off the street and did the same thing, he would have been tackled immediately, and he would have never made it to the stage.
If a homeless man came in at all, they would have done shoved him out the door, let alone...
And look, I know people will sit there and exclaim, but that's Will Smith. Nobody expected Will's... Exactly. Nobody expected him to do it.
Because he did do it. Yeah.
That's why as soon as it happens, you say, dude, you got to go.
Yeah.
We can't allow that behavior to stand. Like, I just think it's grandstanding. It's like, come on, just lip service of we already know the cesspool that Hollywood is, and then who they pretend to be in terms of this elitist culture when they get there every year for the Oscar ceremony, and they're dressed thousands of dollars suits and dresses, and it just pisses me off because I'm like, no, this just shows you for who you all are.
Yeah.
You all are just fancy, glamorous heathens. That's what you
hypocrites.
Yes.
I mean, they're there, like, again, it's more for the grandstanding and the virtue signaling to say, well, we're doing something, but when obviously they're not going to do anything that could change, their way of life, or like you said, with Disney, I have a change of heart. They would. They want to say that they're doing good so that they can look like they're helping people and helping society, but that's not where their heart's at all.
No. Their hearts are continually on what is the next goal that we're trying to achieve in terms of whatever political ideology we're pursuing, and how do we shove that down our members' throats? How do we shove that down the body politic? How do we put that out there in the ethos with all the movies that we make? And it's like, look no further than what's being produced, what's being churned up at these film festivals, what's being bought by these production companies. Yeah, you have the few hidden gems, but it used to be that a majority of the movies that released in a given year, while they might have been subpar, some could have been hokey and dopey, but at least didn't have terrible values. No, now everything has to have an agenda. Everything has to be propaganda for their viewpoint. And then they want to sit up there on their high, in their, high throne on their, in their tower, their glass tower. And they want to sit there and act like they are the ones that imbue upon us the wisdom of their expertise and their artiste. And it pisses me off. It's like, that's exactly what you showed last year, if anything. And I'm not just specifically pointing out Will Smith. Obviously, I think it was just things that have been building up in his own personal life that lashed out. I think we covered it extensively on the show last year, right after the slap happened. But it's like, am I beyond forgiveness? No. But at the same time, part of forgiveness is repentance. And I don't think Will Smith has been completely repentant, in part because I've seen that he has said what he thought he had to say to get back in the good of the public eye, because he thought that he could be, something that's just washed off.
And
right
virtually, away. I mean, he's got a 10-year ban. I mean, and that's really it. His career has not been...
From just the ceremony.
Yeah,
not from being nominated.
That's what I'm saying. Just the ceremony.
Yeah.
He had a 10. And his career otherwise has not been impacted at all. I mean, there were talks about, dropping from things or this or that, but then, he's been in Emancipation. They're already going ahead with Aladdin 2, in which
and he came out and lambasted anybody who didn't watch Emancipation.
Yeah.
Not because it wasn't a good movie, but because it was not because it was on Apple TV Plus, who no one subscribes to.
That's how you know it's not a good movie.
Yeah. But it's like that alone. I'm like, you already went after people just because they didn't watch that film, and it's like, dude, screw you. I don't owe you anything.
But despite whatever projects, I don't even remember. I think he was dropped from 1 or 2. He's getting plenty of work. I mean, was it Guy Ritchie who did Aladdin? Said he still plans on using him as Genie in Aladdin 2. And I mean, there was a few. Oh, Bad Boys 4 is coming now, because we need that. So it's like, obviously, yeah, he's not suffered really anything at all from this slap.
Well, and again, heed this warning, Will. It says more about your character and how you respond after a mistake than the actual mistake. And the fact is that you came out right after swiftly about how your actions were wrong. However, as time continues on, you're continually being fed by those close to you, I'm sure, but also by this overwhelming kind of, ethos around, Hollywood in general, this bubble that you live in. You're being fed that you've done enough, that you should be forgiven and go on like normal and like nothing happened. And the fact is That's just not how it is. You did something. It's not even that it was so heinous that it's unforgivable.
No.
You did something that was so out of your character that in order for us to think that that was something that was a mistake is for you to just objectively go out there and make sure that you do everything to profess that that is not the type of person you are. And I'm sorry, but that's the chip on the shoulder that you have as not only a celebrity, but the type of celebrity that you are with the kind of clout and the esteem and
with the reputation.
The reputation
because
you have,
he's always had a very clean reputation.
Exactly.
People have always been very fond of Will Smith.
Right.
So.
And I hate to say it, but look, when you're someone of that stature and that reputation, and you fall from grace in that regard, it's a lot harder.
It is hard. Look
it's
at,
a lot harder
Bill
to come
Cosby.
back.
He was very loved, and it's just very hard for him to come back. No comparison in the acts. Oh,
go slap him, Will.
Yeah,
then
go
maybe
slap
you'll
Bill.
get back in people's good graces. Alrighty, let's move on to our last headline of the night. Mr. Tom Cruise saved Hollywood.
He
He
did.
saved
He
Hollywood.
sure did.
That's right.
He sure did.
Steven Spielberg told him, he said, you saved the theaters.
I mean, in a sense, I don't I do disagree, but I don't disagree in the sense that if the rest of Hollywood wasn't so retarded, it wouldn't need the saving that it. Well, I was just saying, like Top Gun. It's not a hard say. Like I love Top Gun. It was one of the best movies of last year, but it's also wasn't in my mind this astronomical film that was above and beyond anything we've seen before. It was a fairly standard blockbuster, or what all blockbusters should be, and that's the problem.
What are you talking about? This is the biggest movie in the post-pandemic era.
Because it was finally a movie that was like the movies we used to love before Hollywood went batshit crazy. And they've always been crazy, but they've just completely gone off the deep end within the last decade. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, you look at the movies from the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, all these movies people felt, early 2000s when Lord of the Rings came out, all these amazing blockbuster films that people fell in love with because they just tell films that are relatable to people, that touch on humanity and actual themes that are universal, that without trying to dive into all the propaganda and woke garbage. And that's what Top Gun Maverick was. It was a solid film that actually had some good emotional parts that you can relate to, with plenty of action that was fun to watch.
That didn't pander.
I mean, and it was a well-made film. The cinematography was amazing. And it's funny that Spielberg would tell him, you saved, theatrical distribution. And it's like, okay, but it wouldn't need saving if Marvel would make movies just as good as that, and the fact that you get about 3 Marvel movies a year, it wouldn't need saving at all because those movies would be breaking billions of dollars every time like they did before Endgame.
Right. I agree completely. I can't tell you how tired I am of every time a movie comes out, even with Avatar.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Spider-Man before Top Gun.
Right. Well, It came out before. Those were the 3 big ones.
Yeah.
Spider-Man, Top Gun, and Avatar now that people have consistently said, well, now that we're in this post-pandemic era, these films, it's showing that people are willing to return. And I'm like, no, it's just good filmmaking.
Yeah.
And like you said, there's no excuse for the 3 animated features that Disney came out with and the other 3 Marvel films that came out last year for them to have done poorly, except for the fact that they were just bad.
The last
Actually, heaven forbid people not clamor to go see a bad movie.
Yeah.
That you can't just completely rest on your laurels of being the Disney powerhouse. And that's sadly the case here. So it's like Top Gun Maverick and Avatar, even at the end of the year, proved what actually happens for a big blockbuster these days, which is if you make a good movie, word of mouth travels and people go and we'll see it.
Well, and like you said, because it's not even, I mean, wokeness has its place in people being fed up, but it's even outside of that, the movies that we're looking at, like without the woke stuff, are just bad. I mean, they're not fun to watch. Disney and Pixar are almost, you can't tell the difference anymore. Before you knew this was a Disney animated movie, this was Pixar. The way they were made, their tone, their quality, while both good, were very distinctly different. Now it's like I don't know whether Raya and the Last Dragon's Disney or Pixar, or I know Turning Red's Pixar, but just barely.
Honestly,
is that Disney?
No, I think Turning
that's
Red.
Disney. Yeah.
Wait, no, I think Turning Red is Pixar.
No, Strange Worlds was Disney. Turning Red and Lightyear are Pixar.
Really?
Right. Yeah.
Oh man. Okay.
I think.
Damn. I'm looking at it
because I don't think there was 3 Pixar films this year.
No, there weren't. There were 2. Lightyear was definitely Pixar.
You can't really just tell. They're all this just homogenous mess now. They're
Pixar.
bland.
Turning Red was Pixar.
Oh, did they have 3?
Turning
Strange
Red,
Worlds was Disney.
Strange World was Disney animated.
Okay.
Yep.
And that's my point though. Is like they all bleed together now because honestly, I did like Encanto. I'll give them that. Encanto I liked, but you had it Onward was okay. I mean, it was good. I liked it, but it's nothing special. But you had
I enjoyed Onward more than
anything that's been since then.
Yeah.
Yes. But then you got Raya. I forget was it. Lou something whatever is on Disney Plus. Luca.
Yeah, I never watched it. I never finished it.
And it's okay too, but it's like there's nothing very special or a soul. There's another one. Outside of any of the woke stuff, they're bland and boring. They're not.
I've
they
heard
don't have
people
the heart.
that I've recently talked about they loved Soul, and I was just like, I don't know how. No. I was like, I just didn't appreciate it. I thought it was lackluster. It was again tepid in terms of the material you want to cover. Again, Disney wants to put this lighthearted touch, but that's what I loved about Inside Out. Is I was like, okay, you're dealing with not only human nature, but you don't have to get on the metaphysical level. And it doesn't surprise me because that's all they're doing is churning out what they already know is a hit.
If I knew it could be as good as, because I mean, I do think there is room and ideas for like with the idea of her dating and hitting puberty, but we've done that with Turning Red now poorly. So it's like it's funny that you could have had really good ideas, but I guarantee you whatever they do come up with Inside Out 2 is going to be
and it again, you can't not be worried with the track record that Disney has laid. The fact is that, and I know we're just talking about Tom Cruise saving Hollywood, but the problem is,
most of the blockbusters are Warner Brothers or Disney right now,
right?
And they're all boring.
And the thing is, though, is I think it's proving that it's like even you can take Top Gun and even Avatar, which are technically sequels.
Yeah.
So what is interesting though is Avatar is a sequel to something that's over 10 years old. Top Gun a sequel to something that's over 30 years old, and you have to think to some degree, it's like the original IP is not what's propping these movies up. It's the actual movies themselves that exist right now here.
Yeah, the original Top Gun's definitely not propping up Top Gun Maverick.
No way.
I'd argue Maverick's better. So,
Same. And I think a lot of people are in that camp. And, it's like, while definitely it touches on that 80s nostalgia.
Yeah.
It's like the original Top Gun has a very 80s feel, and you love it for a certain reason. But it's not like a great movie.
Yeah.
It very much is a product of its time. And at least Top Gun Maverick took it a step further and was like, okay, we're going to touch on that, but we're going to evolve it to not only be, I think representative of now, but yeah, it is something that I think you can watch in 15, 20 years. And just like some of the dogfighting scenes in the original that were groundbreaking for that time period, but no doubt the dogfighting scenes in this film, much, much better. But it's just, it goes to show you that when you take care and consideration into the content itself, and you're aiming for a wider array of people, not in terms of watering down whatever message it is that you're trying to purport or push. But again, the message almost takes a back seat because at the end of the day, there's probably some kind of human nature message that we can all connect with instead of trying to ideologically put us into boxes of, well, you need to align with these values or otherwise you're the outcast or now you're the enemy. And I can't tell you how many freaking movies I've seen, especially from Disney, where it tries to pigeonhole you in the idea of, we're about to move on to it with our multimedia segment talking about Last of Us, where it almost makes you feel like if you don't fit into this little sliver, you're either, you one, need to be taught and learned how to deal with this because it's just going to keep coming, or two, you're the one who's been the problem and you need to check yourself. And it's like, why would you do that inherently to an audience who then, by all rights, has the ability to say, screw you.
Yeah.
I'm not putting up with that. I'll turn it off.
Yeah.
And that's typically what people do. They catch wind of it and they say, I'm not going to waste my time on this. Why do I want to take... Ultimately, what is cinema about but going to the theater and escaping from the daily world and escaping from our daily problems? And we've seen more films just regurgitated and rushed out to the scene in the last several years, imbued with this woke behavior and wokeness, just encapsulates every part of it to the point of it being like you're preaching at me. Again, we've talked negatively, as Christians ourselves on this show, how certain Christian movies, they put the message before they put the content.
Next week is also the release of, was it Jesus? It looked awful, but
Sean wants to go see it.
Maybe I should call it awful then.
Jesus,
but I what? It looked, I can't find it. Quit pressuring me. And Jesus Revolution.
That's it. The Jesus Revolution. Yeah. We need one for every 5 years.
So it's either that or Cocaine Bear, and we chose Cocaine Bear.
That tells you where our morals align.
Hey, Kevin Sorbo has a Left Behind movie coming out.
Oh, joy. We're revisiting that series?
Well, it's a sequel to the Nicolas Cage one. I didn't realize this. He's playing the same character Nicolas Cage was. Like, he's replacing Nicolas Cage as that character, and it's going to be a direct sequel to that.
Oh, so it's continuing the series that's already been... Why?
I don't know. I guess they didn't want to reboot it for a third time or a second time. They've already rebooted it once with the Nicolas Cage movie, so rather than reboot it again, because they had to have known when they hired Nicolas Cage, they weren't going to get him to commit to more than one movie.
Well, and think about it. This was back in like the days of like, what was he doing? Like The Knowing. And, oh, what was some of the other ones that came out with?
His career was...
What was the one with the bees? It's like, the bees!
I have no idea.
The Widowmaker, I think. Is it the Widowmaker?
I have no idea.
You don't know that
No.
meme? Oh, gosh.
No.
I think
No
it's called
idea.
The Widowmaker.
That's crazy.
I got to look it up.
That was when his career was not going so hot.
Is it the Widow? Or wait, no, it's not that. Not the Widowmaker.
Google Nicolas Cage, The Bees.
Something Maker, I swear. Yeah, if you look up Nicolas Cage Bees, it should pop up. Not the bees. Oh, The Wicker Man.
I've seen The
Wicker Man.
That's an older movie. Yeah.
It's like
I've seen that. Yeah. Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, it's so good. Look up that scene.
It is. No, I've seen the movie.
And like, of course, the CG on it is just god awful. It's so bad. Product of its time. But I mean, like,
that's not even when his career was at its lowest, though.
No, Jiu-Jitsu, I would argue, is that. I mean, heck, even Willy's Wonderland was better.
Well, actually, those were kind of his indie comeback. Before
yeah, it was. That's true.
Yeah.
Before doing, what was it?
That's crazy.
What was the one we reviewed last year? The
Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent.
That was it.
Yeah, Left Behind came out in 2014. That was
way back.
So he now Kevin Sorbo's making a sequel to that one.
Joy. Can't wait. Really can't wait.
This is off topic. This isn't what we were talking about. But yeah, that's the
I will
point,
say the one meme he had that was pretty hilarious recently, because he's pretty based, and I actually like him in terms of like when I read his tweets and stuff. I just don't know. I mean, and he's not a bad actor.
No, he just makes terrible movies.
Right, the movies are just bad.
Yeah.
But no, it was when the balloon was going to be shot down.
Don't worry, guys, I'll get it.
And he had a picture of him and He-Man, and he's like, "Don't worry, guys, I can handle it."
Hercules. He was
Hercules. That's it, not He-Man.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was great. That was fantastic. All right, let's move on to our multimedia segment.
Do it.
Multimedia.
Multimedia.
Are you not entertained?
Near, far, wherever you are, I'll be here.
I don't know why you're doing this.
I'm just doing it because it's Valentine's Day.
And it's Titanic.
Titanic 25th anniversary.
It did well
out
at
in
the box
theaters,
office.
and it could have claimed yet again. I think it did overtake. It didn't climb back into the number 2 spot, did it?
No.
Or no, that's still in game. It's still in game.
It's still in game. Yeah, it's
that's like its third. Is this its like third release in theaters? Re-release, I should say.
It might be its fourth
because they did a 3D one.
They did a 3D.
They did a 4K one, and this is the 4K 3D one for the 25th anniversary.
Let's see.
I could have swore this was the second. This is definitely. I think this is the third re-release.
Oh no, it's definitely at least his third. I just was trying to figure out if it was third ever. It's fourth, but
I can't remember.
Let's see. James Cameron dominates box office as Titanic and Avatar: The Way of Water lead global ticket sales. That's what I thought. I think they.
It did. Okay, it led globally, but I don't think it was not number one here domestically. I think Magic Mike
was number one domestically,
and it wasn't even. It only sold like $8 million in sales, which is not a lot.
No,
just like Bros.
So yeah, at 8.2 million, the lowest showing of all three Magic Mice. Magic Mice is a better Kunkel on Earth. This is we're not even talking about The Last of Us. But
no, we're not.
If you want to watch a good show, Kunkel on Earth.
That's so good.
Gosh,
it's very a mock-series on Netflix.
Dry British humor, but it's so good.
It's very good.
It's finally something like that's something that people will be like, because you were just talking about Christian filming, like the second episode. Did you see how bad? It's like, yeah, but
it's like.
It's everything's so tongue in cheek, and it's making like literally it's so not woke because they're making fun, like they're being so sarcastically lambasting everything. It's like so great.
Which is better, the Bible or the Quran? And he goes, the Quran. And it was like, and that was it. They answered it.
Okay. But it is so good, so good.
It's better to laugh than to cry.
Yeah. You got to know when to laugh at yourself as well.
Exactly.
So Christians are too.
Well, and I was gonna say, and not only that, but they clearly make fun of Muslims. I feel very and to the point of like they're like, oh yeah, we couldn't put this in here.
Yeah.
And they just cut and they cut to a screen. It's like, this is not available in your territory. I love that. That was great. Alrighty, guys. Now, let's talk about the big show on the block.
The Last of Us.
It's no secret that we are fans of the game on this show.
Yeah, it was a fun game.
We've teased it in terms of watching the series. It is now a decade old.
It was an amazing game.
It released back in 2013 or 14. I think it was 2014.
I think it was 2014.
So it's almost a decade old.
You know, there's not a lot of times you see such an amazing game be a standalone title, but it just it exists and there's nothing else. Just that one game. That's it. The Last of Us.
That's it.
Yeah,
that's all.
And there's only going to be one season. Well,
no, we don't know that.
No, we already know there's going to be two. I was being facetious,
right?
But you know,
well, but two, it's clear
it's
at this
based off of something that just doesn't exist. So
that they are doing almost like season one is the first full game, and then season two.
They did say season two might be like cover the game in two, so it'd be 2 and 3. Seasons 2 and 3 would be the second game, and I'm just like,
here's the weird thing.
I don't.
Okay, we'll have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is episode 3.
We will.
We'll get there. For the most part, having watched up to episode 5.
Yeah, I've watched.
You're caught up.
I'm completely caught up.
So spoiler alerts abroad, if you know, abound. If you don't want to have any of the show spoiled, turn away now, because we're gonna do a deep dive into it. And here's the thing too. We play the game. I know what's coming. I know the story beats.
Yeah.
And other than episode 3, which they completely derailed.
It's very much exactly like the games.
It is. A lot of it is. And in fact, the latest episode that we just watched, I was kind of surprised at how quickly
I agree.
They went through this interaction between, I'll just name drop the people because it's like you have Joel and Ellie.
Henry and
Sam.
Sam, yeah.
Henry and Sam, I thought was a little rushed.
I think, and I feel like part of that too is also because we have played the game, so you spend more time with the characters and everything, and within the context of the show. I mean, I agree it was a little bit rushed, but I think it still landed the way it was meant to, and the way the game did for us. For other people, like I know it really caught Cal and Miranda; they liked it, and for the most part, I will agree. The show is well made. And well acted. I still feel the game hits the emotional moments better, but I mean that is kind of me being someone who has seen and played both.
Right.
Like I don't want to knock the overall. I would say if you exclude episode 3, which we'll get into, the show as is like it's fine. I think. I mean, I would say even better so than Uncharted was as an adaptation.
Oh, no doubt.
And for the most part, I would say I like watching it week to week outside of again episode 3.
Yeah,
I don't think there's so long we could beat around that one. But
no
pun intended.
Yeah. Don't worry, just give me the strawberries. That's why we wanted to wait till this episode to bring it up for Valentine's Day.
We should have done Knock at the Woods this week. Too.
Knock at the Woods.
Knock on the back door.
with the woods. Oh, but no, that's good. That was a good one. But no, so my issue with episode 5 in that regard, I agree with you in the sense that it's like when you play a game and you are immersed in this world, you spend a little bit more time with these characters and getting to know them. It hits a little differently. I don't think that's lost in the episode. I actually thought the last 2 episodes were very well paced.
Yeah.
I was just surprised. I thought they were going to try to drag that relationship out a
little further.
And here's the thing: I kind of see what they're doing in the scope of the show to set in the same pace you have in the game with regard to you don't get to know anybody too well before they're dead.
Yeah,
and it's kind of to showcase the world they live in, how bleak it is, and ultimately that you either survive or you die. And it's like if you're not in for survival the long haul, then it's going to be a quick demise.
I wanted to see because I wasn't. I thought it was between 8 and 10, and it's exactly between 8 and 10 because the first season is supposed to be 9 episodes, so we're more than halfway through, which I thought we were at least halfway.
And that does make sense because even some, and I will say, obviously, there's certain parts in the game that are going to run. I mean, the first game I think you could probably beat in 12 to 13 hours.
Yeah.
So if you think about
faster than that, if you're really if you're speedrunning, you know what you're doing. Yeah.
But the thing is, you take 12 or 13 hours in a game and you break that out into hours of a show.
You don't need that many when a lot of the game is you running around.
Exactly. So the story beats are ultimately what you're relying on, and they've done a good job of adding certain things like. Even in the Henry and Sam episode where they find kind of this underground like school.
Yeah.
I remember
the underwater school of Atlantis.
That's right, Atlantis. Alexandria.
You thought it was just mushroom zombies, but now we got mermaids.
Well, of course.
Yeah, mushroom mermaids.
We get. How do you think Kratos appears and it's like God of War all of a sudden?
What if
tie-in?
This is Sony Multiverse.
All Stars. There it is.
That's what it's leading up to. That's the big movie.
That's
it's
the big
Avengers.
One.
It's PlayStation All-Stars.
I'm telling you, man, they're gonna have a huge reveal. No, but
that's what Nintendo should do with Illumination.
They may.
Smash Brothers.
Oh, dude, they may. If Mario's a hit,
the
Illumination is set. The problem with that is I feel like they're actually trying right now to win their favor.
Yeah.
The problem is once you win their favor, then I feel like I don't know. Nintendo's a little bit more. I think they're tight knit on their IP
and hands on with how it's displayed.
I think they're gonna make sure it's done tastefully. I don't think they're just gonna drive it into the ground like Despicable Me or Minions. But back to The Last of Us, I do think that you have nice tie-ins with the game where you get to explore certain sceneries and find little notes and side stories that really build up the world even more and flesh it out, and that's expected in a game.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, they do a great job of taking you to the same locales, but never overstaying your welcome to the point of, and even some of the same. One thing I thought was adapted really well in this last episode and done actually fantastically on screen was the scene where I knew exactly how it was going to play out from playing the game, and they played it out pretty similarly. But from the sniper in the window, to them, Joel.
I actually really, did enjoy that.
him pretty much flanking him and sneaking up on him, and getting to the point where when he sneaks in, and then all of a sudden, the others come and they pretty much corner them, and I'm sitting here and I could see from a normal person's viewing, they're gonna be thinking like, how are they gonna get out of this? There's no way. And I was like, knowing from the game, I'm like, I know exactly how they're gonna get out of this. And I thought the way it played out and the scene that took place, I was like, this was awesome. That was awesome.
And it's fun because knowing playing the game, it's very like there's like times in Uncharted and other movies where you're watching it and you're like, I could just be home playing this. And I mean, you get that feeling with this too, but at the same time, it was the first time I've seen a scene play out that like him sniping out the window, that it's like obviously that's something you're doing in the game is sniping, and it's one of those things where I'm like, this is actually really well done. This is cool. This is one of the rare times where I'm not bored by something that I could just be playing. I'm like, okay, no, this was cinematography wise and how it's filmed.
The only thing I didn't like about it was I thought it was a little bit too infinite ammo.
Yeah,
I thought there were a few too many times where I'm like,
I mean, it does show him reload a couple times, but
only like once, and then you just see him like re-rack, and I'm just like, I'm like, we need to see him loading another mag a couple of times, just because it's like it's almost like he's shooting that thing ridiculous. Like there's a shit ton of ammo up there.
Yeah.
But then also, I like too. They even reveal the name Clicker in the episode. The first time they refer to them, and you already know it by this point in the game because they've kind of made it a point to give you, during again the world building back in a 2013 game or 2014 game was a little different in terms of and games are in general. You kind of have this nomenclature that builds the world for you. But it was nice to hear the guy reference it, and kind of Joel and Ellie are just like, oh, that's what you. They almost have a look like, oh, that's what you call them.
Yeah,
like they've come up with their own names
and it makes
for them.
sense. Yeah,
but I like the fact that it's like they did add it in there tastefully, where they weren't just you didn't just hear the word clicker from people who shouldn't be naming it that way.
Yeah,
because that's just what everybody calls them. Yeah, it was just very nicely done and attention to detail. And that's been the one thing that has been pleasing.
The bigger part that everybody got excited about. I don't want to spoil.
Go ahead. Yeah.
That came out of episode 5. The
reveal
okay. Not the clicker, but the other.
The bloater.
Yeah.
The bloater was awesome.
That was cool. I didn't know if you wanted to go ahead and just spoil it, but I know a lot of fans they did. They were really excited about that. So
the only thing I was disappointed with is I was okay with where they reveal him at because that's not where he's originally revealed in the game. But I don't know. Surely he's gonna come back.
They'll probably have other bloaters.
And there's other bloaters, but the way that one was done is just like it was cool what that one did to a specific character.
Yeah.
In being their demise, but ultimately I was kind of like, it was kind of anticlimactic. You made this big reveal of it, and then it's just it's kind of like the rest of them running around.
I feel like they'll run into another bloater or so. If that's the only appearance of a bloater throughout the whole series, I agree.
Well, they couldn't have done the original way it was shown because that was when you're trying to get the battery with Bill.
Yeah. Well,
Let's talk about episode 3. If you watch this show, if you watch our podcast or listen to it, you already know how we feel about this episode.
What's
you
funny,
already know.
Because having watched all of it, the whole 5 episodes, if you drop episode 3, other than figuring out where Joel got the truck, which would be, you could come up with almost any answer for. It doesn't necessarily have to be from Bill. That's the only thing about the third episode. You could drop it completely, watch 1, 2, 4, 5, and 4 and 5, and you wouldn't miss a single story beat other than now they suddenly have a truck. Yep. And that to me is on top of the fact that they completely changed the story to embellish the homosexual romance. Is one of those things where it's like none of this. You even said it outside the podcast. I'm sure you'll say it on the podcast. Even if you change that romance to a man and a woman, not only is it still pretty laughable in the way that they interact, I still wouldn't agree with the ultimate message that they arrive to in the whole the double suicide, basically.
Yeah.
Because that no matter who, what form of love, suicide is not okay,
right? So that's not how you show love.
Yeah,
it's this moral quandary that we have.
The whole episode is just it was not again just like what we've talked about with Disney and other things. It just at its core not good.
Exactly, and that's really my main complaints started with the mischaracterizations of Edie's getting crazy over here. She's getting nutso. Calm down, pup. The show's almost over.
Almost.
She's my Valentine.
Almost.
Look at her puppies. But no, what really pissed me off was the mischaracterization of Bill and Frank. You never meet Frank in the game.
No.
The only thing you ever hear about Frank is that he was Bill's partner. I always took it in the game that was like his scavenger partner, that they teamed up, would gather materials. It's hinted at that Bill has a bigger interest in Frank. Frank is pissed at Bill, and look, Bill, when you meet Bill in the game, he's a hard ass.
Yeah, well, he's extremely cynical.
He's a tough, no nonsense. I've got to survive, and if you give anybody any kind of leeway, it's your head. You're done.
And they hint at him being that way at the beginning of the episode when you see him setting up the traps and him fortifying the town, and
then it completely changes.
Well, because Frank changes him.
But that's my point. His demeanor completely changes from who you even know him in the game. It is not the same character. Even the note that's left by Frank, who does hang himself in the game,
who ended up hating Bill,
who hates Bill.
Even if that was the intention that they were romantically involved in the games, at some point Bill's cynicism became too much for Frank, and he ended up hating him, and that
might have at least been a somewhat different
more
story to tell.
Story, yeah.
But again, today's woke world won't allow you to tell a story where there's tragedy between gay characters. You have to have a gay romance that ends hunky-dory, and their version of hunky-dory is assisted suicide. It's
double
sick.
suicide,
Double suicide. It's sick. It's twisted. It's morally corrupt. It's morally bankrupt with any kind of means of emotional draw. I don't think there's anything edifying about this episode whatsoever. Like you said, you miss one plot point. There's a good 15 minutes in the beginning of the episode, and of course the tail end when Joel and Ellie kind of come in and they don't even see, they just know that they're dead, and there's a note left for them to say, take whatever you want.
Offers no,
and it's like those two sections of the show are the only part of the entire episode that you even need to fill the narrative gaps. That's it.
It also destroys some of the thematic elements and the character development, because it's not. The Last of Us isn't just Joel and Ellie, coming across different people and different locations, and here's this adventure that you see in each episode played out through the game, because all of the people they meet and the things that happen create like an overarching story that gives them the growth and development as characters, and plays into these themes of fatherhood with Joel, and it's like you destroy part of that with what you've done in the third episode, because Bill being so cynical and a hard ass and pushing everybody away is right after Tess's death. We've said spoiler alert, which happens the same way. Not the exact same way, but it happens, in the show and then the game, and then they're going on to Bill and Frank's.
Very similar.
And then they go on to Bill and Frank's. So it's like right after losing her, because Joel has, lost everybody so far. He's trying to find his brother who he hopes is still alive. He lost his daughter. Now he's lost Tess. It's one of those things that are now seeing how Bill has pushed the people away from him, and someone has wound up dead because of Bill just trying to get away from him.
Yep.
Part of that cynicism is also a teaching moment for Joel, who is trying to keep Ellie at arm's length because he doesn't want to become attached to her, because he had lost a daughter in the past. And it's one of those moments that you slowly see Joel's heart kind of soften, because Ellie does
he can be one of two ways.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I was going to say he could be like Bill and lose everyone and have nobody, or he could take back that father role and help Ellie and stand for something and fight for something worth more than just surviving.
Yes.
And that's the kind of these themes in The Last of Us that are so much big, the universal themes that touch everybody. That's why I love the first game, that you kind of lose because you're trying to shoehorn one message in that detracts from something else that's much more beautiful.
Well, and to even extract out and go beyond that episode, like we've already said, you completely get rid of the third episode. You don't need it for the rest, and that proves even more how not only exaggerated or the political messages they chose to extract in that episode, but also it proves even more how lazy it is in terms of writing, that it's just like, oh, we had to have our gay episode. We threw this in here because this was the perfect character to do this with. And of course, I don't think it's tongue-in-cheek that they chose someone like in the game, like you said. And it is hinted at, because in the very scene where Ellie and Joel leave and Bill in the game gets them the truck, he literally ends it with, I don't owe you any more favors, and get out of my town.
Yeah.
Like, get the hell out of here. I never want to see you again.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like all right, done deal. We're leaving forever. And as they leave, Ellie pulls out and she finds a playgirl in Bill's truck.
Yeah.
And it's just one of those things where I'm like, again, even in the game, that was lost on me.
They recreate that scene in the fourth
it was
episode.
hilarious.
And
it's funny in the game, but it serves as just comedic relief, not some end-all be-all message of virtue signaling. And this was their virtue signaling episode. They had to tell you where they were coming from, that, again, it completely destroys who Bill is in the game. And I don't care if you say, well, he's the creator of the game, he has the right to do that. Yeah, he does, but it's completely different material at that point. And my point is why keep everything else in the series very pinpoint the same with the main plot points, and then you change this one theme just for the sake of the times that we're living in now. It proves that you're not only virtue signaling, it proves that this was never the intent of the actual character to begin with, but it was how you could shoehorn a message that you know would be widely accepted by the woke culture today, and of course, as we saw, highly praised and of course pushed by all major media publications of this is the essence of a great video game adaptation and how video games have risen above just some stupid, silly play toy for kids and for just guys. This shows the real creative depth. And I'm like, please, this game was 10 years old. It accomplished all of the themes that are way deeper than just what they did in episode 3 10 years ago. Far better, far stronger. And it pissed me off because I'm like, it just proves you all are pandering. That whole episode was just pandering. It was grandstanding. And I love that they specifically chose Bill as this kind of character of this strong, independent man. And it just so happens that, yeah, he's this bear. He's a big bear.
Hey.
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
Get you a bear.
That's right. And it's like, gosh.
Giggle at the strawberries.
And yeah. So terrible. It's so god awful. There were times, I'm not gonna lie, it wasn't that it was uncomfortable. It was laughable. The dialogue, the scene when he's playing the piano and trying to sing, I kept laughing. I'm like, I don't find this heartening at all. I mean, it was like it was a cheap romance. It was what I get from watching The Notebook. I watched The Notebook and I'm like, this is a mile wide and an inch deep. There's nothing of substance here. And that was the way this episode played out. They jump forward time and like what? It starts out when the pandemic first begins. The whole 20,
because
to the point where they kill themselves, and it was like 20 years. Yeah. And I'm just sitting here. They jump this time span in the middle of like 40 minutes. And it's just like from the scene where he gets out of the shower and it comes over, and the scene or the line that Frank says to Bill, he's like, "I don't want you to think I'm a whore."
Yeah.
And I just laughed. It's so bad. It is the worst writing.
I was going to say,
gosh.
We made fun of House of the Dragon a little bit for how they chose to age some of the actors. Can I say that just putting some gray powder in over the course of 20 years, Nick Offerman, I'm like, just looks like Nick Offerman. It's like this man aged 20 years and all they did was shave his head and make his beard gray.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the same thing for Joel. And granted, I mean, I get it. Like that they hired an actor already in his late 40s that they hoped, I guess, could span the time of 30s to 50s as he is in the but I'm just like,
well, and I got to be honest with you, I hate to say it, but and it's not that Pedro Pascal or Bella Ramsey are doing anything.
I don't think they're bad.
They're bad.
They're good. I just,
but man, it
doesn't hit
Troy
the same,
Baker
yes.
and I'm forgetting her name. I got to bring it up though. I can't forget her name. She's the girl. She's Rosie from Growing Pains. If I just look up. As soon as I say the name, too, I'm going to remember it. It's Ashley Johnson, I think. Is it? Daggone it. It's got to. I know it's Ashley Johnson. I know it is.
It is.
But I
Ashley Johnson.
Is it? Okay, all right. I thought I got it. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they do a stellar job. Job as Joel and Ellie. And there's just, like, even the scene with the Playgirl and, like, it's not bad. It's just there are there was one scene that got me in the 4th episode that I thought was done really, really well, and it's not in the game either, but it was fantastic, and that was the scene where Ellie and Joel are laying down at the top of the tower to go to bed, and Ellie very seriously, they can't sleep, turns to Joel, and she's like, "Joel," she's like, "What happens if diarrhea is hereditary?" How do you know?
She said, I went to the doctor. Like the doctor told me, like, you know, I had diarrhea and it's hereditary. And he's like,
he's literally like, what?
And he's like, it runs in your genes. Yeah. And I mean, no, it is from the, but it was really well done.
It was hilarious.
I laughed. But that was a perfect
But
moment
when
of
he
displaying their
turns
characters.
over and he kind of smirks,
yes.
but then, and you don't see her reaction, and she's still thinking like, oh, he's just upset that I'm throwing out these puns, and then he kind of snickers and chuckles.
And she's like,
and he's like, you thought that was funny.
Yeah.
It was a very, that was the moment. That was
very Joel
great moment.
and Ellie. I feel like they nailed their characters there. And I think as well, depending on whether they changed anything from the second game or not, as Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey continue in the roles, I think they're going to do fine. Like I said, everything else about the show is well done. And I mean, I don't really have a lot of gripes other than, like, again, that's part of me being a fan and nitpicky, but I do agree the emotional moments were just Troy Baker and, Ashley Johnson just nailed it. And I think this interpretation will be fine if they continue to make good quality content and not do episode 3, but knowing how the second game is and what's coming, I don't have a lot of...
Well, and even Bella Ramsey came out with those comments today and was mentioning how in an interview of get used to it. And I'm like, okay, you little whippersnapper, little nitwit. It's like you're a freaking kid. You're being thrust into a world you don't even understand, and you're just... Hollywood is using you. And I'm sorry that you have no moral compass and your parents thrust you into a world that you're going to grow up in now, into that cesspool. And now you're learning the right talking points, and they're parading you around to say the right crap in front of the right and to all these publications. And they're just going to, she's so brilliant. What a young, beautiful artist. It's sad. It honestly is sad that they're just feeding her that kind of propaganda. And ultimately it's like, that to me is what I have disdain for the most in Hollywood is you just can't act anymore. You can't.
No.
I mean, you have to be an activist in order to act. And that's the problem is you spend more time as an activist than an actor. And I'm so upset with it, tired of that part of the industry. And it's the reason we continue to get woke crap. And unless people just go out there and realize, hey, you're an entertainer, just entertain. Make good stories. Make good emotional connections. Quit acting like you're on your high horse preaching down to the rest of us plebeians. Come on. Alrighty, that's going to do it for this episode of the Red Moon Podcast. Thank you all so much. If you all tuned in tonight for Valentine's Day, if you were sitting there, snuggled up on the couch with your sweetie, watching us two guys sit here and tell you about movies. That feeling's mutual.
Well, that was to the people watching us.
If
you're snuggled up at home watching us.
Actually, that's a fair point. It's like, what are you doing? Go make love.
Yeah.
Go enjoy some
Don't watch
time
us.
together. Some hot, sweaty lovemaking. Go make a child.
Child rearing.
Alrighty, that's going to do it for
Bible
this
tells you to do it.
episode. Remember...
After marriage, of course. After marriage.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. But we need to repopulate this planet. Come on. I'm talking to all my Christian brothers and sisters out there who are married. Tonight's the
Kevin
night.
Sorbo, he wants you to do it.
It's not just about roses and candy. It's about popping out another kid. Trust me, I know. I need to find that one. I need to start popping them out. Sean aptly pointed out, hopefully I'm not the only cause next year.
Maybe there'll be a year where we won't have a podcast on Valentine's Day.
And you'll know why. We're all trying to make babies. Trying to repopulate the planet.
Making babies on
That's right.
Valentine's Day.
That's right.
November babies.
Would it be November?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't. Yeah, I can't. Simple math. All right, guys. Remember, next week we do not have a show. We're going to have a review of Ant-Man Quantumania and, of course, a review of The Triangle of Sadness.
Triangles of Sadness.
Those will premiere next Tuesday.
I know nothing
but
about
no full
it other
show.
than Woody Harrelson's in it.
I don't either.
That's
that
enough,
was the surprise.
That's enough to make me interested.
So no show next week. We'll talk about Quantumania the week after. But email us if you have any questions at rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com. Of course, I don't say it as nice as you do.
rmpodcast@redmoonproductions.com.
Beautiful. And follow us, like, share, and subscribe. All of our social media accounts. Red Moon Book, Red Moon Tweet, Red Moon Pics, and, of course, search for Red Moon Productions on YouTube.
Productions on
we appreciate
YouTube.
all the love and support. Thank you all so much for joining us.
Is kind.
And enjoy the rest of your all's Valentine's Day. Until next time, I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Davidson, alongside not our normal new host, but that other one over there.
Love is patient.
Love is kind.
Yeah!
We hope you enjoyed this week's episode. For more reviews, previous podcast shows, and everything Red Moon, visit our website, redmoonproductions.com. You can also like us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for Red Moon Productions, LLC. We'll see you at the movies.